So we are back with another review on the series Secret Level. Now, this was released in two parts. Part 1 came out on the 10th all at once, and then Part 2 released on the following Tuesday, but I got super busy with so many other things that I wasn't able to do it immediately after the release of Part 2. And I had like a live stream that I was trying to get ready for by the 20th, and so now working on the second to the last video for the year. And so, this obviously takes up with episode 9 to 15, I believe it is. And I'm going to have some spoilers for some of the episodes, but they're going to be kind of minor. I'm not going to do any massive reveals, but just in case, I will try to yell out when I do a spoiler for a certain segment. And so, yeah, how is Part 2 compared to Part 1? I think they probably should have had some of the episodes of Part 1 in Part 2 and some of the episodes of Part 2 in Part 1. Let's discuss.
But that person who did those things, that's still me. Now that's who I fight. Every hour of every day. I don't always win.
How much would you risk? How hard would you fight? How many lives would you give? Just to discover what you're capable of.
Okay, so before I go episode by episode, with all these episodes kind of combined, I felt like the Part 2 episodes, not as many of them were as heavy hitters as in Part 1. I mean, Part 1 you had Pac-Man, Warhammer, you had, some obscure ones like Sifu, but I consider it kind of a heavy hitter, Dungeons and Dragons. And you do have kind of heavy hitters in Part 2, but it's not as much as in Part 1 was, because Part 2 does have some original stuff, some MOBA games exclusively like in China. I'll get to that part in a minute, but the first episode was The Company We Keep, which was focused on the Outer Worlds, which I have yet to play that game, but I am looking forward to trying it out because it's a lot like Fallout, but just on a sci-fi planet. And so I was kind of intrigued by this, and honestly, this is one of the few episodes where it's the least connected to the world. It's like, obviously it's set in the world of Outer Worlds, but honestly, if you never played the game, I don't think any of these characters really appear in the game, and I don't think these characters in this short would appear in the game at all. It's just like very disconnected, and it does play around with the idea that like sometimes you shouldn't be so focused on, obsessing over people, I guess is the best way to say it. And I mean, visually it was a good looking episode, but it's just like, there was a point in my life that this episode would have really, really bummed me out. And I could definitely tell that there's some people, when they watch this episode, it's going to bum them out. Because sometimes we see certain people in the world and we think that, like, if we could just be with them, it would make everything better. And eventually, you're going to have to accept the fact that either that was wrong, or you just keep lying to yourself and you say that no, it'll be good, it'll be fine. And so personally, I did not care for this episode, but it was well done, and I didn't find it confusing, or I didn't feel like I was out of place like with the first episode of Part 1. I will try not to fret on that one as much. So yeah, not my cup of tea. Well done, though. And everyone did a pretty decent job in that episode. Now, with episode 10, which was called Start, and that focused on Mega Man, this was like one of the better episodes of the entire series, including part 1 and part 2. It's also one of the shortest ones. I think it was like 6 minutes. And basically, this was just like a quick crash course. This is the origin of Mega Man. And it's so quickly done, but it's so elegantly with how it gets to the point that, like, if there's anyone that you come across, it's like, I've always had an interest in Mega Man, but I've never, like, known where to start. I would immediately recommend, okay, watch this episode, and then you can play the games. It's like the perfect introduction to anyone who wants to go into Mega Man. And I'm not even that big of a Mega Man fan, okay? I've played a couple of the games. I feel that, yes, I thought the games were ridiculously hard when they shouldn't be, but I've played a couple of games, and it's like, honestly, for someone who's played a couple of them, this is a great introductory point, because unlike this, the games, they just put you in the shoes of Mega Man. It's like, okay, go. And it's like, who am I? Doesn't matter, just stop playing the game. And with this is like a perfect, like, hey, you want to know who Mega Man is? Watch this little short, and then you can just jump into all the games. And so I really like that. The animation was very well done, very slick. I honestly thought this was a wonderful short, and this is what Secret Level really should be all about, is create kind of these, like, segments that are complementary to the main games. The 11th episode is kind of an interesting scenario, because before this point, every game that these shorts were based off of are games that have already released. But with this next episode, Exodus Odyssey, this one was focused on a game that has yet to release. And you're probably thinking, what is Exodus Odyssey? Well, when I saw the announcement trailer, I just assumed it was just another sci-fi adventure in the vein of, like, Mass Effect. Come to find out, it's actually being made and developed by key developers from the Mass Effect trilogy. So this upcoming game, Exodus, is going to be more of a Mass Effect game than even the 5th Mass Effect coming out soon will be. Because, I mean, let's be honest, there's this, like, weird, I don't even think it's like a conspiracy, it's just there's this weird, like, mindset that everyone has where if you have a game developer like BioWare, it's like, oh, well, they made Mass Effect, so their next game's going to be good. But the problem is that that's the company name, and the individual employees underneath, that's what made the games. And unfortunately, a lot of these studios like BioWare, you have Naughty Dog, you have Insomniac, they are remnants of their former selves. The people who made those amazing games are no longer at these companies. That's why with the trailer for Intergalactic came out, they were saying from the studio that brought you Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, Uncharted, and The Last of Us. It's like, no one is still at that company who made any of those games, with the exception of, like, maybe Neil Druckmann, but he kind of stole credit on Last of Us, let's be honest. And so, like, okay, great, your company made those games. None of the people who made those games are still there, and that's the problem with BioWare. Yeah, BioWare's working on a 5th Mass Effect, but the people who made Mass Effect, they're not working on it. They're working on this. Exodus, I believe the game is just Exodus, and this episode's Exodus Odyssey. I almost called it Exodus Odyssey. But, I mean, they're working on this Exodus IP, and definitely with some of the world building and, like, the character development and kind of the art design, you can definitely see that high quality feel that you saw with like the original Mass Effect trilogy. And definitely it does feel like they put a lot of work into the world of this universe. And one of the interesting things about this episode is I would say that it's probably one of the better episodes of the entire series, is the Exodus Odyssey episode, because they really do a good job building the world of Exodus, this like new universe that they're getting ready to do in video game. And one of the big like aspects that they're introducing into this world that definitely was not present during Mass Effect is time dilation and the theory of relativity. And basically, if you travel at light speed, you're going to age much shorter than someone who's not. And so they definitely play around with that old, like, not parable, but that old philosophy, like, concept of you have two brothers, one goes off to explore the stars, one stays home, and when the brother gets back, he's still the same age he was when he left, but the brother that stayed home is an old man now. And the like philosophical question is, who had the better life? And so I think Exodus is trying to like do some stuff with that, because the story in this short is all about relativity, time dilation, and honestly, it was a really well done like short story. I really enjoyed it. I liked the characters, I liked the concept, and this episode did a good job of getting me excited for this game, because before this episode came out, it's like, Exodus, I heard of it, I'm not really like interested, and then I looked into it, it's like, oh wait, the people who made Mass Effect are making Exodus? That's awesome. And then I saw the short, and it's like, wow, that's really cool. So that's something that Secret Level could potentially do with its second season. Apparently it just got greenlit for a second season, so that's cool. Is they could like do upcoming games, like really focus on more upcoming games, and kind of help get people more interested in these IPs that no one really has done anything with yet. And so I think that's a really cool prospect for this show. And then the next one was called Tally, and it was focused on the game Spelunky, which honestly I've never played, but I did get a free CD key for it, and so I did install it. And so I'm going to play it now. The story of the episode, like, honestly didn't do anything really for me. The animation was just, wow, really gorgeous, really slick, and it was fun to watch, although I don't really know anything about the world of Spelunky, so I assume there's this thing where, like, you can, like, die over again, so I'm assuming maybe it's like a roguelike, but no, it was a perfectly decent episode. It didn't blow my hair back in terms of story, but no, definitely wasn't one of the worst episodes, and so I'll definitely give it that. And then on to the Concord episode. A lot of people are kind of talking about this. It's called The Tale of Placeable or Placable? Placeable. I'm going to say Placeable. This was an interesting one because the game was shut down before this episode even came out. And Sony really was like gambling on this game. They thought this was going to be their biggest IP ever. They thought this was going to change the face of Sony, and that all other games were going to be like basing their development models off of this game, and they thought this was going to be like their biggest IP. And thankfully it wasn't, because if that was the case, then they would just greenlight, okay, we're not doing any more single player games, it's just going to be all online only multiplayer games. And The Tale of Concord was in like, I think it was like 2 weeks the game released, it got shut offline, it got canned, and the studio went under in like under 2 weeks. That's how bad the reception was for Concord. And one of the reasons why Concord had a really bad reception was for many reasons. It just felt like Overwatch. It didn't do a lot original or interesting. But one of the big things was people did not like the characters. They did not like the character designs. They didn't like the personalities. They kind of felt like these were nothing characters. And what's interesting is none of those characters are in this short film, or this short story of Concord. And I think what happened, I think what they were trying to do was they thought Concord was going to be a huge hit, and then they were going to have like a season 2 where they were going to have all of these characters in this short film, and people would have seen this short film with Secret Level, and it's like, who are these characters? Like, these are the characters that are coming over the next 12 months or something like that. And it was kind of an interesting concept. Kind of like with the Exodus thing, it's like, okay, we're going to have a couple of episodes for upcoming stuff. One was upcoming game, one was upcoming DLC. I think that's what they were planning with the Concord episode. The problem, none of the characters are likable or even remotely interesting. They're colorful and vibrant, but they are not interesting. And like, the worst one is the character of Cassidy. Like, oh my gosh, there's cliche, and then there's Cassidy Timac levels of even beyond cliche. Like, to call this character a cliche is an insult to cliche characters, because this character was like the definition of a Mary Sue girl boss in the worst possible way. The type of character that people tend to gravitate away from female characters. Characters like this make people not interested in giving other female characters a try. That's one of the reasons why I think Furiosa failed, because everyone just assumed it was going to be a character like this. And the people who did watch it is like, no, actually Furiosa has 3 dimensions to her. She's actually likable, she's actually interesting, and she's just not a, you know, anything you can do, I can do, but better, and wins at everything. She doesn't do that. And unfortunately, that's the case with this character, Cassidy. Like, it is so bland how cliche this character is. Like, literally, there's a scene, and minor spoiler alerts here for this episode, but I'm not spoiling anything special. There's literally like a scene where someone would say, you're really going to go toe-to-toe with Cassidy? Like, you really think you can take her on hand-to-hand, physically? And it's a guy talking to another guy who's going to, like, force her to do something. It's like, okay. And then, like, literally, it's not just characters around her that are, like, doing the wingman thing and, like, talking her up. No, literally, this character also speaks about herself like she's the gift to the universe. It's like, who's this? Like, that's the pilot we hired. It's like, you would dare hire a pilot when I, the greatest pilot in the cosmos, am here in front of you? And she didn't quite say that line, but it was that, like, blatant. It's just like, oh my gosh. And it's like, everyone talks about her in, like, hushed tones, and it's just like, it's characters like these that give female characters a bad rap. Okay, these like overpowered, they can do nothing wrong girl bosses. Okay, if you want the audience to like your female character, have her make some mistakes, have her screw up, have her lose a fight or two, have her stumble so that she can have these like moments of learning. Okay, have her like the character of Marie in Exodus Odyssey. The character, the lead female character in that short film, is infinitely a superior character in every way. And she wasn't even in the episode that long, and she was such a better character. I would rather spend 100 hours with Marie than I would spend 1 hour with Cassidy. Because, I mean, Cassidy was just unbearable. I could not stand this character. And Marie was such a likable character, and she was barely in it. And it's like, no. I mean, you know, she was a kid. That makes sense why she would have done that. And it's like, yeah, you know, she made some mistakes. And, like, yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of a poignant ending to this character. And Cassie's just like, good gosh, get off yourself. And, like, none of the other characters were even remotely interesting. They were colorful and vibrant, like I said earlier, but it was just like, come on. It was just so boring, and like honestly, I'm glad Concord's dead. I mean, it's just like, what a terrible idea for a game and an IP, and it's just like, yeah, this did not deserve to survive, and it was nice knowing you, Concord, and seeing this second part to Concord, and it's like, I'm glad it's over, because these were truly some of the worst characters that Sony has ever authorized to be created. Now, the second to the last episode was kind of interesting and weird at the same time, because it was based on the game Honor of Kings, which is like, I've never heard of this game, and so I googled it. It's a MOBA game that was made by Tencent and was released in China. So it's like, oh, okay, so it's not something I would have really heard of, and I'm not really into MOBA games. But the story was the way of all things, and basically, in this world, in a world, remember those trailers? In this world, where an AI controls this like ancient city, and it runs this ancient city. The city's like starting to like fail, and so this one kid, he decides he's going to challenge the AI for control of the city, and you have kind of like this chess match between this AI machine and this kid who hates him with every fiber of his being. It's a beautiful episode, and definitely tries to like go into like the upcoming debates on AI and whether it's a good thing or if it's going to be a bad thing. And I mean, honestly, everyone has an opinion on AI. I don't think there's one definite thing. It's almost like time travel, and I think sometimes people forget certain things about AI, and other times people are a little bit too overly cautious about it, but other times people are way too cavalier about AI. And so I think there's kind of like this healthy like middle point where it's like, okay, we're using it a little, but we're not letting it get in control of anything severe. Like, we'll let it make art, AI generated art images, and that'll be about it. I do think though that like when it comes to like AI art, I think the days of AI generated movies are not a possibility. I think they are inevitable, and I think once you have one successful, you're going to see them become the norm, and you're going to see an actual live made movie be kind of an oddity. Because I mean, if you have a computer program that can create a convincing action movie with like Marvel characters, and it only costs like $5 million to make that movie, every studio is going to do it. Why spend $200 million on flying actors around and going to different locations when you can just put it in a computer program and generate a movie? And so I think that is coming. But going back to the episode, I thought it was an interesting episode. I thought it got a little cryptic right at the very end with the like cliffhanger surprise they were maybe doing, I'm not sure. And so it's like, okay, is this supposed to be a gotcha moment, or is this just like and plus I have no idea if these are any characters in the MOBA game. I don't. So this didn't do a good job of like intriguing me of playing the game. It was a decent enough story, and it's worth a watch. And then the last one was interesting because it was kind of like, okay, what if we did a short that's not based on any one IP? Which hasn't been done in this show yet. You had them do some like crazy variations on like Pac-Man, where they went like, what if the guys who made Scorn did this? And apparently, I found out after the last video I did, there's actually a game out there that someone did with that art style of Pac-Man. It's not called Pac-Man, but it's like a Metroidvania type game. It's just like, wait, what? And so that's actually a game. But this one is kind of like a conglomeration Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Wreck-It Ralph, Free Guy type of story, focusing on like PlayStation owned characters and IPs. And I liked a lot of this episode, but I also did not like a lot of this episode because the main character is, you guessed it, a girl boss who can do no wrong, and she's perfect in every way. And like initially when I was watching this episode, I was just like, oh wait, no, she's playing a game. This is her character in the game. She's really good at the video game. So, and then I find out, no, it's an AR game, an augmented reality game. So when she dodged a semi-truck trailer door just mere centimeters at the last second, and when she propelled herself up into the sky to get onto a fire escape, no, that was her, because she's just that amazing at the age of 13. And it's just like, seriously, characters like these are what's making people turn away from female characters. Okay, this character could have been really awesome and really intriguing, but no, it's like she has to be perfect in every single possible way. There's no exception. I hate writers like this. Okay, who wrote this? Rich Larson and JT Petty. You have told me that you do not want to actually put any effort into writing a female character. Okay? You do not have a spine to write an interesting female character because they have to be perfect. Otherwise, you might get criticized. And it's like, no. Okay, we need to stop being okay with this. Okay, we need to... I'm not saying that every female character in this series was bad. I kind of like the characters in Spelunky. Okay, the two female characters in Spelunky. I really liked the lead female character in Exodus. Okay, let's see, what else in this series? I liked the female characters in Crossfire episode. And then, let's see, what else? Yeah, that was it. That was it for the female characters I really liked. And so, like, this show does have really great female characters, but the show also has really bad female characters, and Playtime Fulfillment had such one. But it doesn't ruin the episode, because the story's not really a lot, but it basically is an excuse to recreate kind of those old early 2010 PlayStation ads that were so awesome, where you have like a guy walking through the street talking about how amazing PlayStation is, and you have like Hellgas soldiers running around, you have Nathan Drake show up, and it's just like the city's in chaos, and all of these famous like PlayStation IPs are just kind of like running around, and it's like those commercials were so awesome. I miss PlayStation 4 PlayStation. Like, that era was so awesome for PlayStation. It was like mid PS3 to 2020 PlayStation 4 was like the best years of PlayStation, and then it just started going downhill in 2020. And like, PlayStation is a husk of its former self, because their commercials now, they're just kind of dumb, they're kind of stupid, and it's like, what happened to the creative commercials of the old days, where you have like the, you know, like, what was his what was that commercial? Yeah, the Michael PlayStation 3 commercial was just so awesome, where you have all these characters from like PlayStation library, and like all these characters are in a bar talking about Michael and how Michael saved their ass, you know, on this one famous mission, and like how like none of them would be there if it wasn't for Michael. It was like, it's to Michael, and it's like commercials like that were so awesome and iconic, and like Sony's kind of lost something, and this short of Secret Level really gave me some memory vibes from those commercials. It's just like, you know, this would have been a really awesome commercial. Like, you have the Helldivers show up, you have Kratos show up, you have one of the giant colossi from Shadow of the Colossus show up, Sackboy showed up. It's just like, you know, I wish Sony would kind of go back to some of those old IPs. I mean, you know, I know a lot of people would say it would be sacrilege to suggest this, but, you know, it'd be kind of cool if Sony attempted a sequel to Shadow of the Colossus. Or, you know what, another Sackboy game. Like, do Sackboy meets Astro Bar, and you have like a co-op function where one person can play as Sackboy, one person plays it as Astro. Okay, go back to Killzone. Sony, for some reason, despises Killzone now. And, like, Killzone has a dedicated community, and Sony refuses to touch it. Guerrilla Games says, we never want to touch that IP again. We just want to focus on Horizon. We want to make Horizon a thing. Even though more and more people are getting turned off of Horizon. And it's like Sony has no interest in going to their old IPs, because according to Sony, we don't have any IPs. And it's just so infuriating. I've heard some people say, well, that was just so they could purchase From Software. No. Okay? It's so infuriating when they say stuff like that. And, I mean, I wish they would go back to kind of this, like, toy box creativity, like this episode shows. And I loved all the cameos. It was a lot of fun. I wish the, like, thing she obtained wasn't just this random, like, gushy thing. I thought it would have been really cool if, like, the thing she obtained was an Astrobot or a Sackboy, instead of just having Sackboy as a cameo. But, like, that would have been really cool. Having some of the resistant, the Chimera show up, Chase Hero, would have been amazing. This could have been a better episode. I would have started off with her just finding this, you know, thing, instead of her, like, being such an amazing extreme sports gamer that can dodge semi-trucks mere inches. It's so stupid. And it's like, I mean, this was an okay episode with a dumb lead. So overall, I really liked this show. It wasn't perfect. Part 2 was not perfect. It had some issues, but I definitely want Season 2 of Secret Level. Because one of the great things about this is no one group is making every single short. So, absolutely, I was going to have some shorts that I didn't like and that I did like. Same with you. There's going to be some shorts in this show that you are going to absolutely love, and then there's going to be some shorts that you're just like, it wasn't my cup of tea, and there's going to be some shorts you're just like, that stunk. Okay, but that's one of the great things about the show, is it's different teams working on different things. And some of the teams did multiple things, and, like, I liked some of them, but didn't like others. And so it's this great, like, buffet experience where it's like, I can have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I didn't like that. I did like this. And honestly, when I saw that Amazon announced that they are doing a Season 2, they've greenlit a Season 2, it was like, good. I'm really looking forward to Season 2. Even though I know some of the episodes will suck, I want to see new game IPs. As much as I would like to see continuation of some of these, no, give me an entirely dedicated God of War episode. Give me an entirely dedicated Halo episode. Okay, show the people at Paramount how to actually do a Halo IP. Give me a dedicated, I don't know, Elden Ring. No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky would be amazing for this show. People at Hello Games, please let that happen. Okay, please let us get a 10-minute No Man's Sky short. Okay, that'd be so much fun. I mean, a Dying Light short, you know, more obscure games like The Medium, Deathloop, Devil May Cry. I mean, the sky is the limit with a show like this. And I really had a fun time watching this show. And if it ever comes out physically, I'll probably buy it. Even though there were episodes I didn't like, I love the concept of having these little, like, short films on famous video games out there. And so, yeah, definitely, if you're looking for some quick bite-sized short films with some really gorgeous CGI animated art, I would highly recommend checking out Secret Level. I really enjoyed the overall package. Even though not every part of the overall package was good, the overall package was really satisfying. So anyway, that's been my review of part 2 of Secret Level. What did you guys think? Are there any of the episodes that you really enjoyed or you didn't like? Sing off in the comments down below. My name is Christopher Kyle with 11 Hour Reviews, and that will be all for today.